That and we're live.
Uh,
All right, all right, all right.
And we're
Well,
back.
welcome to another episode of EE&J's K9 Lab. I think we left off on puppy training the last time, so I guess we'll go just a tad bit more into that. And shoot, let's get started. You know the speakers, and we'll just get started. So there's been a lot of just talk on the boards and just amongst different pullers on distance. That people pull dogs. To get them used to this. Times, weights used, track transition, and reading dogs. So that's what we're gonna go into today.
Sounds
All
good.
right. So
Sounds
all
good.
right. So let's start on distances, and you can go with that. Start with that, Eli. How long do you start your young dogs or your puppies, or is it a different distance for puppies versus adult dogs? How do you do that?
Yeah, if I am starting a younger dog, the distance isn't going to be quite as long per se. It's all on kind of reading of the dog. At least for us over here, I look at a dog. I want to see where they're at. If they're starting to have a hard time, we're going to cut it short. I don't really necessarily have like a set distance, but like right now, on average, like the adults are doing about a 7 acre turnaround. We'll do that, one way, and then do
Well,
that.
for the people that live in apartments and the city, what the hell is a 7 acre turnaround?
So we go the distance of 7 acres up and down. I call that a 7 acre turnaround. So that I consider that one lap for the big guys. And usually, like our big dogs are doing like 2 laps. Depending on where we at in the particular keep and how they're looking. Some nights we can't do that, and some nights we might add some more depending on, again, reading the dog, looking at how they're feeling. If they look strong or if they look tired, we'll cut that short. But it's hard to really put like a number on it. So that's a dog that's got some more time underneath it. Where like a dog that's just starting out, we might do, half of that. We might do 3 acres, and then turn around and come back down.
Okay, so I got some homework for you for the next K9 Lab, man. I want you to turn those acres into miles and quarter miles or yards,
You want me to
inches,
go out there
feet,
with the fucking foot
feet.
roller and measure the fucking feet?
Because 7 acres, you're gonna have people out there, boy, man, them dogs gonna be strong. Them dogs gonna be strong.
Well,
Trying to keep up with that 7 acres.
again, but that there's a difference there with a 160-pound dog covering that
Look,
versus a 40-pound dog covering that. That's different.
everybody ain't get their 40 acres and a mule yet, so you gotta goddamn work with us.
We'll try to translate that into feet, and
Hmm.
kind of see. But it's emphasizing on reading the dog, right? And seeing
Yeah.
if they've had too much, just stop. Like there's no. Sometimes you hear people that we have to do this amount of distance. No,
Hmm.
you don't have to do that amount of distance. I have no problem cutting the workout short and cutting it into quarters if I have to, and say, you did one, okay, one and
Hmm.
back, or two and back, and keep, raising it up like that. And sometimes you get dogs that are stuck, on
Yeah.
half that distance because, they're just not in shape, can't handle it
Yeah.
yet, or they're too young.
Yeah.
The key to that is just reading that and being able to be a good handler and call it and say, okay, enough's enough, time to come back.
Okay.
At least for us anyway, that's kind of our general look on that. But other than that, I don't really have like a set. Even when we weren't here on the land that we have now, and we were out in the football fields and stuff like that, you know, we just eyeballed it. It really was an eyeball, just kind of reading and seeing. Okay, this is kind of what we usually do. I wrote down a lot of stuff like that too, so it would help so you can compare other dogs to
So
good
so it
dogs.
ain't gonna work now because now you got to write down farm life training, farm life weight pulling. That shit ain't gonna work now.
Yeah. It's a
Now
little
you
different.
might well just pass me all those notes because I'm still training at the football field. So you might as well pass me those notes so it can
Yeah.
help me.
Hey, and some people don't like to write notes, and some people, do. I would probably suggest to write down some notes. I don't know. I'm getting older and I'm
Yeah.
forgetting shit. So
Mhm.
writing shit down and be able to go back a few months later and go, hey, oh, this is what we were doing. This is how the dog looked in this weather and this type of field condition. And then now, I have this dog to compare to that dog, and you can kind of have, a comparison and see where they're at. We used to do that a lot and still do sometimes here.
All right. All right. So John, on to you, man. How many acres do you pull for your dogs and back?
Listen, man, I don't be hanging out with the Amish, so I can't,
Yes,
I don't talk acres.
All right.
You know what I'm
I'm
saying?
don't
with you.
you know now? Don't you know?
Yeah. That's where he got the acreage measurements, hanging out with the Amish, going visiting them and shit.
Mhm.
um, you know, but for me, I mean, I would think it's like, it's much less than that. Like for me, it's about anywhere between 125 feet to 150 feet, going straight, and then
Okay.
I shoot right back. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's me with me resetting the chains and stuff like that. I stop them and so forth. Like I tend to do, like for my big dogs and the puppies too. I take them down that same route, footage, everything the same, and just shoot back. Obviously, weight is not the same, or pressure on the body is not the same. But I try to instill that, basically, that distance, in them. But that's usually what I do. Of course, obviously, I have my two different types of drags that I do, but that's the main one that I do, which is that 100, usually about 150 feet is what I'm doing right now. I mean, I measure that heel to toe kind of thing, so
Okay.
so that's pretty much it, but even for grown-ups and pups.
Okay. So for me, I work out at a football field. One lap around that football field, and I go on the outside edge of the if there's a track on the outside edge of the track, would be a quarter mile. So, and I do puppies and big dogs like that. Even if a little 8 week old puppy, that's I'll take them out first day, and I might just do 50, 60 yards and back, and I'll do that for a week, and then I might try to get them to, and this is no harness. I'll try to get them up to walking. They got to be able to walk that quarter mile before they can do anything. So I'll work them up to being able to do the quarter mile. Once they can, harness goes on. After the harness for a week, then we do a chain, and then after the chain, we add a weight.
Now, how important is it to keep going, or stopping in between that? Because some people think that I hear people talk on the boards. They don't want to stop. They want to. You got to keep doing the distance and keep, like. How often would you break in between that, or is it a necessary thing? You take that on a dog to dog basis, like kind of what we do over here. We just look at it, and
Mhm.
if I got to stop a lot of times and give the dog a break, we will, and give the dog the break. So how do you do that?
So with my puppies, I normally that first couple of weeks, the weight's so light, and they're really just kind of running and walking with me that I
Yeah,
really don't stop them. I'm gonna be honest, I don't stop
yeah,
and go with when they're like young, and I'm talking about like 8 weeks, 9 weeks,
yeah.
10 weeks,
You don't have
11
any
weeks,
weight
12 weeks.
anyway. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I don't have any weight. Once we get up to maybe let's just say 5 to 7 pounds, then you'll see me start incorporating stop and goes just to do it. And they're not even tired. I'll just do it just to get them used to me starting and stopping, starting and stopping, and then as it gets heavier and heavier, especially on like a humid, hot day, we'll stop. If I see a tongue come out, I'll stop. Hey, pat them up. And I keep hot dogs in my pocket, and I'll give them a hot dog, and then we'll start back up again. Now, but it's dog by dog.
yeah. And
Yep.
and that's a good thing you just said there.
Yeah.
I've seen, since this whole thing is about debunking myths and stuff like that. I've seen some people say that they don't want to treat their dogs at all. They don't want to give them any type of reward other than a pat on the head. How often do you treat, if you treat any at all? How would you say that? And that goes for both of you guys.
So crazy part. I not only treat. I keep a tennis ball in my hand, and I one of the Kong ones with the squeaker in it. So
Mm-hmm.
and you guys hear me when we're talking on the phone. So when you're pulling a young puppy, they have a very short attention span. A piece of paper on the ground can make them stop and look at it, or a bat fly. Because I train normally at nighttime, so a
Yeah, yeah,
bat will fly by, squeaking, and they'll look up. So that tennis ball, I'll squeak it. Hey, come on, let's go, work, 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 and it just to get their attention, and it goes, and I stop squeaking, and then we walk. You know, sometimes if they see a piece of paper, I'll come on, work, 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 squeak the tennis ball, and they run towards me because they're used to me playing with the tennis ball in the house.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll just use that little squeaker toy. I even buy squeaker toys, and sometimes I'll take the little white squeaker out and just put it in my hand just to squeak it, something to catch their attention. Once they understand what the pulling is, and that's 21 to 30 days, I don't need the squeaker toy or the ball or anything anymore. I still keep the hot dogs, but
Yeah.
I don't do the squeaker toys. And then the hot dogs, when it's little young puppies, if I'm trying to get them to start, sometimes I'll squeak that toy and then I'll give them that hot dog, you know, to get them to come to me. And if they stop again, it's just a process until I can get them to keep following me without that hot dog, and they'll get it at the end. But when they get to a point where we're doing a lot of stop and goes, every time we stop, they get a hot dog. And this is for younger puppies. Once we get over up to, like, let's say competition time, I'm not hot dogging like that. They're just doing it for the pet at that point.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. For me, it's very similar. Like I said, I don't drag that far. I mean, I do reps. I do multiple reps, but I don't drag for that far. So, but I do. I mean, anything you do in life, I think you do it better when you're rewarded, right? So, I'm a hard believer. Like, you need to reward that dog because it makes it. Why wouldn't you want to reward for something so stressful on the body, right? With puppies and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I give I do the hot dog too. I started doing the heart treat, like the freeze dry hearts and the liver treats and stuff like that. And then the hot dogs work a little bit better. It's easier to get when I run out. You know,
Yeah.
so it's one of those things. I just cut them up in those circles and kind of I don't do it in between. I don't do stops and goes. I just read body language, like he was saying. When they're little, I don't get a lot of weight on them, so they tend to kind of be just wagging their tail, jumping up and down, running with the
Yeah.
flow.
Now I can't afford freeze dried liver and chicken tenders and shit like that. So I use hot dogs. And sometimes when you're in the woods, so let's say I'm gonna give you guys a scenario real quick, and I'm gonna let John go back. You're in the wood, you're out in the field training your dog. Your car don't start. You got a pocket full of hot dogs. At least you guys gonna eat for a couple of days. All right, now go ahead.
Uh, you know, I and then I'll go with body language. If I do the stop and goes, if I see body language, and right as soon as I see him, if I see him kind of start slowing down or even think about stopping, that's why it's always important to make sure you pay attention to your dog's language, body language, even before I try to get them before they even take that step where it's like that hesitation, and I do like not like I do a very like come on let's go come on, and then I stop them because they're tired, you know, and then we go, and then we finish it up, come back when we're done with that rep. That's when I give treats and praise or whatever it is that that I'm doing, which is technically basically both, praise and especially with puppies, I carry them like little kids, and you know what I'm saying, like give them a lot of love and treats and stuff like that. But with my dogs too, we go back. I don't do no stop and goes. I try not to do no stop and goes unless it is very hot or humid, and for whatever reason I end up having to do it. It'll be the same thing, but they get treats when we're finished, and
Mhm.
that's pretty much it, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, easy
I,
enough.
I
hmm
do in the beginning of in the
So
beginning.
you just hold on. You just feed your dog one of them sheep.
Yeah. Yeah. One of them fucking Muscovies I got running around over here. Yeah. Yeah.
Like a goddamn dragon.
Yeah, in the beginning over here, usually after like a couple of days, I want to say a good like 3 or 4 days of continuous dragging, then I like to do multiple stops and goes because of the distance for a new dog,
Yeah.
and I treat a lot. I do give a lot of treats. I like to focus on the stop and go for the simple fact of I want to make that solid. So when I say I keep a puppy on my left hand side, every dog, um, and it's from the
Same here.
obedience,
Yep.
the same
Same
thing from
here.
the obedience. So they always got to be on that side. I expect,
So now that you say that, when you have multiple dogs, it's easier to get up and do the same thing over and over again than it is. You got to remember, oh, this dog is right side, this dog is left, that dog
yeah,
is in between. If you
yeah,
do one side, guess what? It makes life
yeah,
simple.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and it's keep it simple, stupid. I mean,
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
easiest thing to do.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't let them pick. Obviously, when you first start a dog and they're just starting learning to move and go forward, you give them that leeway of they're starting to learn how to move the weight and move around. Okay, but once we get past that stage, it's okay. You got to stay on my left hand side. And I train them where when that foot that's closest to them, is it moves forward, I expect them to engage as soon as that foot goes forward. And then I in turn to give them the audio cue for that. So they have a visual cue, which is that foot moving in that forward direction, and then they get the audio cue. And so
Yeah.
we'll do that. And as soon as they get, oh, okay, that foot goes forward, I go forward. I heard, the command, and then when they go ahead and they move, we'll go a couple feet, stop, boom, right there. Or if it's a dog that's having a hard time, as soon as they even go take a step, boom, they get treated right away. So they start realizing, oh, okay, this means engage. This means engage. It's just like the obedience when we say foos, it's okay, go forward, and they get treated right away. We do that until the dog is very comfortable, and they basically start to flinch. As soon as you go to even slightly move that foot, they're ready to go because they're paying attention to that, and then they're looking up at you like, okay, where's my reward? And
Yeah.
we're big on rewarding dogs, and especially giving good payouts when they do something really good. We'll give them a large cash out is what I like to call it, and
A
then we'll
goat.
slowly wean away from that as the time goes by, and then we end up moving that onto the track time, and then treating on track and so on and so on. But that's further down the line.
All right. I like it. All right. We touched on different weights a little bit last time as far as weights used. Do you guys have anything you wanna elaborate on that?
As far as weights,
Yeah.
As far
So
as weights used,
are you referring like the setup? Is that what it is? Like the
yeah,
chain
yeah,
and what
yeah,
behind
the
it? Yeah.
chain setup, yeah,
So I think all three of us kind of have a little bit of a different thing. I think we talked about this a little bit before. I'm kind of in the
yeah.
middle of everybody here. I have a really long chain setup. My chain is probably
Stay there one second. I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna go get one of my weights. I want to show it to
okay. Go ahead,
everyone
go right
what
ahead.
I actually use. Go ahead.
Yep. So my chain is one continuous long chain, set up in different sections, so I can add on or remove the weight depending on the type of dog, the size of the dog, and so on and so on. But I want to say my chain is probably 75 feet, maybe even a little longer than that, and I use once the dog is graduated, and we need to start adding more weight, and we don't like a weighted chain. Like it's not the little typical rinky dink chain. Like our chains are
Yeah.
substantial size. And once they've graduated out of that and they're moving that with ease, then we start adding plates at the back of it. I'll do dead weight plates, anywhere between, 2.5 pound plates, 5 pound plates, 10 pound, 25, 35 pound plates, and then add them up accordingly. Um, and I do that because I like the resistance all the way at the end of my chain. And I like it really, really far back. I think you guys both kind of do something a little different, but
yeah, I do
that's
something a little bit
kind of what I
different.
do with that.
All right. So for puppies, this is what I use. This is a flat 10-pound plate,
That's about what I do
and
right now. Yep.
and see it has I welded that O-ring on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this from a pound and a quarter all the way up to 10. And that's what I use. So I go pound and a quarter. I have a 2.5. I have a 3. I don't even know where I found that 3 at. A 3. I have a 5. And then I just, if I need to go in between, I put the pound and a quarter on top of it and then go to the next full number like that. But this is what I use until I get up to about 20 pounds, and then I switch over to a small trailer tire. Yep. But that's just an example of what I use. And the one, I actually have one that has a pole in the middle of it, so
Yeah,
I can stack weights. So I
yeah,
stack plates on top of it. So instead of me hooking plates to my chain and maybe every 10 feet, I just put all the weight on top of each other. So
yeah.
I have a 10-pound plate like this with a pole in it. I might drop a 5, a 2, another 10. Like I said, once I get to 20, we go to a tire.
I pretty much use those plates just like that, except without I don't have the O-ring welded. I just go a smaller light
Yeah.
chain goes right in between the middle into that hole right there. And then when I need to add more weight to that, I just have another small chain attached to the other plate with a hook. And then I need to add more weight. I do another plate. So then there'll be rows of plates just, and I do that. I like the resistance like
Yeah.
that, which it creates more resistance, which in turn allows me not to have so much weight, especially when I have dogs this size.
So the way your resistance is pretty much created is you spread out in a fan. It's kind of fanned out, right?
Well, it's all in one line. So
Uh-huh.
so it's like, so if we're describing it, it's the chain, it's a plate, and then there's
Okay.
another chain with a plate, and
So
then there's another
it's
chain with
kind
a
of
plate, and it's
kind of
just
how you
straight.
would do a window weight setup, except for you're using chains and plates.
I'm using chains and plates, correct. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't like the window weights. I think for me personally, I don't like the way they move. I think they move a little too smooth. They tend to bounce around everywhere and kind
Yeah.
of do all this. I don't
Yeah.
like, so, and I feel, again, for me personally, that's why I like my chain so long, and I like the weights
Mhm.
all the way spread out like that. I feel like I can keep a dog straighter, and you can see when the dog starts to rear off and starts to float off to the side. You see it because you see that chain, and it takes a long time for it to catch up. Excuse me. And then so that way I can keep a dog next to me and focus on going straight. That's why I like to do it that way.
So talking to you, and this is a conversation I had with several guys that use window weight setups and sleds. So what I like about the way that I do weights with this, like I said, I got a pole in the middle. All
Yep.
my weight, so all my gravity is pushing straight towards the ground, right?
Yep.
Mine isn't fanned out,
Yeah.
and the reason I started this is because I didn't always have a truck or a van. So I
Yeah.
used to have a car, and I liked what I did so much. I wanted to do it in my car, and I needed something that was small enough that I can stick in my car, but also effective enough that I can have dogs that were good quality dogs and ready for nationals or whatever else I wanted to put them in.
Yeah.
But all my gravity pushes straight towards the ground. So
Yeah.
if I put 100 pounds, that's 100 pounds pressing onto the ground. Where I notice with chain setups, you might have 100, you might have 200 pounds spread out on that chain because of the simple fact of how your weight set up. For me, especially if I had to pick that chain up and take it with me every day, that setup is probably would be
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
more Henderson.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like my setup, it's a permanent setup, right?
Yes. It stays on your ground,
Yeah, it
stays at your
stays on the
house. Yeah.
ground. If you have to pick this up and take it out in the field
Yes.
and put it in and out of your truck, it's
Yeah.
going to be a pain in the ass. It's
No.
heavy. It's a lot to move around all the time. This is something that stays out in the field, and it's easy for me to just leave those plates laying there. And when I got to add a plate, I just grab a small chain section, hook it up to the last plate, and just keep going. I got to remove. I just stop, unclip, leave it right where it's at, and on the way back with a different dog, I can hook it up to it. So that's kind of from it's more of a permanent setup because of the living situation that we have here. But if you got to travel, that's gonna suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Most definitely. So what about you, John? What are you using?
So for me, I have a very similar, but I do use a window weight. And for those who don't, I have a couple in here. You know what I'm saying? So for example, like I have my window weights, right? So I basically tie a piece of rope here, and then I'll tie it up on the chain, kind of thing, right?
Hey,
So
hey, hey, hold on. Show that window weight one more time. So the
Like a log.
So there's a so show them the see. Okay, go to the left. There's a little hole in it. That's where you put the baby oil to keep it dragging smooth. Go to the
There
left.
it is.
this is
It's
not
That's
called
the
much.
lube
a
point.
it's
That's
called a
the
baby
lube
oil
point.
depositor.
Oh god. But yeah, it's basically the same. I work my dogs up, and like Eli say, my chains aren't small chains. We get some heavy duty like marine boat chains and stuff like that. And I work them up to 40 feet. That's my sweet spot.
I edited it out. Oh, yeah. Mm.
because like for example like my I guess what you would say environment has a bunch of like sugar sand. So
Mm.
and when it rains it really creates a nice hole when the chain's running through there. So when I put one window weight on this side and one window weight on that side, it is creating friction in that hole as the dogs are pulling it. You can see them whenever, because some parts of it is kind of flat, but then
Yeah.
there's the other parts where there was like a little like a little steep little incline, and the chain will go through it. Now when that 40 feet for that like 5 foot of substrate or flooring, it's gonna hit them hard, and you can see when it hits them because it's just like when you're on a track. It simulates when they're on the track. They'll hit it, when they get into that rough spot, and you just see them kind of like get low and pull like the whole way until they free up, and it simulates to me like how a track, when a hard track all of a sudden hits that hard spot and they learn how to break out of it. And for me, like that pretty much is my
Sorry,
setup.
guys.
You
You're right.
know, that 40 foot chain, and then like I have sections too that I break off in case, or that I need if I need to when I'm working out a puppy.
Well, you said something that was telling too, because you're like more in like a sandy environment,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
so that's I think that's important to realize too. Like your environment of where you're pulling at might
yeah.
dictate your setup a little bit more than somebody else's, where it kind of that's more beneficial. It sounds like it anyway for your environment. Yeah, where
Correct.
I'm on thick grass over here, so it's different.
And I've told people, Emmanuel, if you're talking, I can't hear you. I can just see you, moving and stuff like that. But I've told people like from now on, wherever I decide to pool, if I move from here, whatever it is, anywhere I go, I will have loads of sugar, of sand, of beach sand, because to me it has worked phenomenal. Like, you know what I'm saying? It has worked. It's I think that's one of the reasons why my program itself has really shown in the dogs, because the sand definitely has been one of those that's played a big factor in how they've grown as dogs and just as athletes. Yeah.
All right. I like all those good answers, man.
Which in turn then goes into the next question, I think, which goes to spotlight or not the spotlight. This is the question.
Yeah, yeah.
You
That's
know,
it. Now that's a really good one, man. What do you call it?
What's a
You said you
spotlight?
call it a
A G line?
spotlight.
Like a like
I don't heard a
if
cheat
you
line.
hold
I don't heard a
if you
helper.
hold it, I'm gonna fucking hit you. There we go. Okay, we're back. I don't know if that's going to create a whole separate one or it puts us back into the one. I hit stop recording by accident. I'll figure out how to match it together. But yeah, if you call it anything other than a spotlight, when I see somebody out there, I'm going to hit you with a weighted plate. It's a spotlight.
Mhm.
I don't know what ding dong decided, who's never been to a gym ever in their life, decided to call it a cheat rope or I don't know what the other one is. A help
Helper
rope, a
line.
helpline. I
Yeah,
guess
Uh
the helper line sounds a little bit more realistic. Some ding
yeah,
dong was like, "Oh, it's a cheat rope." Anyway, you're not
huh. Yeah.
cheating. It's nothing to
yeah,
do with cheating. You're spotting the dog. When you go
yeah,
to the gym and you're at that last rep, you go, "Hey man, can you give me a treat? I need a treat over here."
yeah,
Clearly, it's some ding dong that's never worked out a day in his life. It's a
yeah.
spot
Mhm.
line. I guess you can call it a helper line, but you call it a cheat rope. I'm gonna fucking smack
Yeah.
you with something.
All
FYI,
right, man.
guys, not use the word cheat line in front of Eli. He doesn't like that shit.
Uh-huh. So that's actually a pretty good question. I I don't use a spot cheat or a helper. I'm one of those strong believers, and I understand it. Eli done broke it down to me for about an hour, and I totally get it. But I'm one of those guys, man. I'm not gonna put that much weight on a dog. If a dog has that much weight on him, I just rather get stop and goes. And if I'm just not gonna put that much weight. And if he has too much weight, and I think he worked to his full capacity, and I didn't even get half of my workout, I'll pull the weight back. But I never, I don't know. I just figured that before I would help him, I would just stop him. Hey, you're done. Hey, take a break, get a breather. But I do understand where they get it from. I
Yeah,
get it.
I think a lot of people also use the spotlighting in the wrong way as well. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be there for when the dog is slowing down and you're trying to get just that extra couple of feet.
Yeah.
It's not for you to be dragging the weight behind the dog the whole entire time.
Mhm.
It's there for that. And it's also there depending on where you're dragging at, and this has happened to me.
Yeah.
This is why even now, even with fully experienced dogs that can have years underneath their belt, I still have the spot line there because sometimes you can get debris and stuff stuck in between your weights, especially when I have dead plates on the ground. So sometimes if they snagged onto a branch, a couple extra rocks or something that dug in and made it really hard, and that
Mhm.
dog is like, oh man, I can't move. I don't want him to quit. I don't want him or her to, oh man, this is what happens. When we're on the track, it gets hard like this, and then I can't move it at all. So the spot line for me is there for that. Just in case there's an issue where we get
Mhm.
snagged up on something somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it so much here because our area is cleaned up. But before, years ago, where we used to drag at, that used to happen. So I always just got in the habit of doing that. But it's mainly there for that last, extra 2 or 3 feet that you need to get from the dog, depending on where they're at in their training. I'm just so conditioned now that I want it on there, just in case we don't have any hiccups along the line. I don't want to create any bad habits. I'd rather prevent it. And for me, it's a
Mhm.
preventative measure more than anything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like
Easy
for,
enough. Do you use it? Do
for
you
me,
use a spot?
who me?
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm gonna give a couple of examples. Like this is where my program has kind of shifted due to like the substrate, right? It's different. So
Yeah.
before I used to use it in a sense to help a dog start off because once the weight moved, it was easy for a dog to move it, or I needed enough weight for the dog to feel some sort of pressure while it was moving. But for it to engage was the problem because once it moved like on hard grass, it was easily moved. So I always had to put sometimes a little bit more weight on it, but for the dog to start, it needed just a tad bit of a help to start, and then it would move it and it would hold pressure the whole way. Now, due to the sand, I don't use it. I only use it for those dogs that I'm still not 100, like still in training, and I still don't know exactly where they're at. Because I don't like Eli said, you don't want them to stop in certain situations, right? For the last couple of feet. Uh, so I've used it for just like new dogs, just to know where they're at. But and then for my bigger dogs, I'm like Emmanuel. I don't put a lot of weight. I put enough weight for them to either barely finish, where it's like, and it could be kind of one of those situations how where you say, Eli, you have it just in case that does happen, but then that all comes back to knowing your dog, knowing movement, seeing what the last rep was before you added more weight. And that's how I go by. If I feel like, okay, I can slap on two more window weights. Okay, no, maybe this time I can slap down one because I saw how he moved compared to previous times when I slapped on two. So it just comes down to you knowing your dog. But I use it. If I use it, it's mostly for the newer dogs where I still don't know exactly where they're 100%, more for their mental kind of a state, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I'm
Okay.
super paranoid on making those mistakes because we're
Yeah.
human and sometimes
Yeah.
we still make the mistakes. You look at a
Yes.
dog and you say, you know what, I can put an extra, 15 pounds on, and I put that extra 15 pounds,
Yeah.
and it moved it, 5 or 6 feet, and then it's like, no, here we go. It's
Yeah.
starting to, oh, that was too much, overestimated. But now, if I have the spot line there, you know what, we're gonna finish these extra 2 or 3 last feet real quick, and then I'm gonna stop and then I'm going to go back there, remove that extra weight, adjust the weight. I just didn't want it to come to an abrupt stop, and the dog now is like, "Whoa, what just happened?" I just don't. You want to nurture that frame of mind of I'm going to move this no matter what. You said work, it's going to move, and I don't want them to ever feel that when the weight shifts to that heavy that they're not going to be able to move it, especially because I made a mistake, and I added a little too much weight. So that's why I'm still paranoid with that, and it just for me that's why it's always
Yeah.
on there no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about the cheat,
The
the
spots.
classic cheat, spot helper, cheat spot helper, whatever, everything you guys like to use. All right, so now let's talk about track transitioning. So when do you think is a good age or a good time in training, or how many weeks in the training, or how many days in the training am I transitioning into track work? I mean, and this is each one of you guys'
You know,
perspective.
I'd like to go first just because I don't
Sure.
have like a full thing like probably like you guys. So, I'll go ahead and start because mine probably be shorter. I'm still playing around with what I think is best, but for me, it's like when I get over a certain stage in my routine and I feel like okay, they showed me enough for me to like basically step it up, and it's not like a time frame. It's mostly comes down to what they're showing out in the field as dragging, and I guess where I kind of see where the mind's at, and I go from there.
Okay, go ahead, E. You can go ahead with that, E.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it's usually, depending on the dog. I like to get in, like if I'm getting a dog ready for an event, I try to get in a good, you know let's say I'm doing like a 10-week keep. I try to get a good, 6 weeks of dragging, before I even, for me, even think about touching a track. Now
Yeah.
that's with a dog that's already has track time in
So I was about to say you kind of going into something different. I'm gonna tell you why.
Sure, go
Now
ahead.
you're talking about a keep. Well, we're still training puppies, so our puppy's not gonna really hit a keep yet until they get ready for a show. So what about when you're puppy training? Okay, I'm dragging this puppy for 3, 4, 5 months. He looks like he's ready. When do you take him to the track then? A keep is a man. That's a whole nother dog episode.
Yeah, that's a whole nother. But see, you guys start them a little younger than I do, so it's a little
Yeah.
different for me
Yes,
when,
that's
when I'm
true.
looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why my brain
Okay.
automatically goes
I got
into
you.
that,
I got
because
you. I
I
got you.
try
I
to
got
skip
you.
out that part a little bit. So now, not to say that I haven't done younger pups, and I not say that I probably won't. But if I am doing that, it's I'm probably going to look at least a solid 2 months of dragging, and maybe a little less. Again, it's all about looking and reading the dog and seeing where they're at, making sure that their form is correct, making sure
Yeah.
that every time I say start, work, they working. There's no hesitation into that. And every time I ask them to stop, they stop. And as long as that engagement, that forward engagement is solid, is rock solid, and they're engaging correctly, then
Yeah.
that's when I'm going to transition over, and okay, now we're going to add in some track time now, and see where we're at. But that number is, it's just, it can be switched with each dog, um,
Yeah.
just depending on their age. That's really what you gotta have to. Again, this is where reading a dog needs to come into play, and you got to be honest with yourself and not be paying attention to somebody 5 states away, that you're looking at their dog and, oh, their dog's on the track already, I should put mine on the track. No, you take your time with yours, and adjust it to what your dog is. For me, it's on a young dog. We're gonna have a couple of weeks. At least 6, 7 weeks, of dragging where I feel comfortable, and then I'm gonna switch over to it. Unless I have a really special dog that's just picked up on everything really, really good. Is a strong pup, and then I'm like, okay, maybe now we can do a little bit of track time. But again, by that point, I probably already did a few weeks of, and I say few, 5, 6, 7 weeks of dragging before I feel comfortable moving into the track. And the track work, for those that probably don't have a track, you can simulate some of that stuff out in the field as well. You don't necessarily, have to go into that. You can build a what we like to call a drag track, where it's just 4x4s on the ground with some plywood. You get
Yeah,
some
some
that,
pallets, some pallets.
yeah, yeah, you can do pallets as well. You get some of that carpet cushion, you lay that down, wrap carpet around that, and I did that for years. When we didn't have a track, I probably did that for like 15 years. We had like a
Yeah.
30 foot slab like that, and that was our track time. And because engaging moving forward is moving forward. Doesn't matter if it's on the track or out in the field. So you practice all that out in the field. So then when you put them on a carpet, they're just like, okay, this is the same thing that we were doing out there. Sometimes to kind of simulate that and keep them going straight, you can throw 4x4s out in the field and make that into like a chute. And you can just go up and down through that. That kind of simulates a track. At least back in the day when we used to have a lot of dirt tracks and stuff like that, that really helped out. Not so much now, but that's still a way to simulate, being on a track and doing that scenario.
No, that's good. So for me, I'm kind of the same. I'm about 8 to 12 weeks before I even think about a track.
Yeah.
And that very first track time is just me walking the dog up into the track, maybe giving him a hot dog, turning around, and shooting off. And normally when I go off the track, I normally have my tennis ball with me, and I'll roll it off the edge of the track, and it makes them go off the track easier. Because it's their first time. So I try to play with them and make it a game. But yeah, about 6 to 8 weeks. And then in the field, I have a lot of structure. When we're dragging, the dog has to stay on that left side. When we're dragging, I don't let the dog veer off to the left, or I don't even let the dog lean into my leg and lay on me. I don't want the dog to keep a good, I'm going to say 10 inches between us, and 10 inches to a foot. And I like them to stay straight, so when I go from them walking on my side to where I'm backing up in front of them, I try to turn. When I turn, their head is normally between my legs, and I keep it right there. If they veer off to the left or veer off to the right, I bring them back and tell them straighten up, straighten up, straighten up. And normally they get the picture. So that way, once I go to the track, they already understand if he's to the right, I got to stay within 10 inches off of them, and they're going to just track straight. Or if I turn around in front of them, they're going to try to stay between my legs, or use that as a guide point. They need guides too. So that's pretty much what I do. And then when I start my back and forth with my young dogs, I'll start off, let's just say my empty tire. I'll walk them in, and I'll say turn. I'll have a hot dog in my hand, and I'll hold it in front of their face like I'm stacking them. But the whole time I'm saying wait, and I'll hook them up, and I'll ask you ready to go, and I'll step off. We'll pull, let's just say 20 yards. I'll stop them, unhook them. We'll walk out, turn around, come back. When I get to that tire, I'll say turn. I'll hold that hot dog out front of them, wait, hook them up, let's go. Now, but I'm adding weight each time I do this, and I might do that 3 or 4 times, and it's over.
Yeah.
3 or 4 times, and it's over. By the time weight pull season come, or it's time for them to pull, those dogs understand how to walk up the track. They understand how to turn. They understand that they should be waiting for me and not pulling me down the track while I'm hooking them up, all that stuff. So it like I said, I keep a lot of structure in the field, so that way when I go to the track, I have less problems. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. Now, here's a good question, which we talked about this before off camera.
Okay.
Sometimes you see people with these puppies, and they got really young pups, and they're running them up and down the track, and they're running with the dogs on the track. They just put the puppy on, and they're running, and the pup's running down the track and coming off, running down. Is that something you do, or is that something you like to do? I mean, I'll chime in on my opinion on that at the end of that, but
So honestly, no, and I'm gonna tell you why. Sometimes it could create anxiety. So you don't want a dog to think that every time he get on the track it has to be 5 seconds before he gets off, or it's a problem. So I just don't want to create that habit. So again, I wait till these dogs are in the field. They can take a good long pull, and they understand what I'm asking them to do. Then I put them on the track.
Yeah.
Then I worry about, because normally a dog is going to revert back to what you taught him. So if you take them and put them in a new situation, whether it's on hot coals, whether it's on rocks, whether it's on concrete, whether it's on a track, pulling is pulling. They're going to pull. They should turn around and they should pull. Bam. So I try not to do that, because I don't want to create any anxiety in the dog to get this done as fast as possible, which we all like it to get done as fast as possible. And that all
sure,
comes once they put everything together. They'll put it together themselves, but you just don't. I try not to create any anxiety from me.
yeah.
If they pick it up, that's something they picked up. But if I don't want to create that anxiety in them.
Jonathan, what do you
Yeah.
say?
So for me, it goes back to why is one of the reasons why I bring the dog's a little bit way later into track. You know, I don't bring them in right away. I bring them until they already know real real pressure, so that way I don't have to, you know, kind of play with the puppy on the track. You know, most of the time it's like if I when I bring them in onto the track, if I have to make any corrections, I can make them, because they're already kind of used to any sort of, you know, correction, and they understand that. So that's what one of the reasons why I bring them a little bit later and I incorporate it later, because I already want them to kind of have that, because like Emmanuel says, I don't want to develop bad habits. I want them to be used to and have that mindset like, okay, anything he throws at me is gonna be hard. So this is not gonna be different, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I think with me it's the same thing. I don't obviously I most of my dogs I'm going to start a little later than we've already established that. So, but
Yeah.
one of the reasons I like to start them later on is because I like to cut the fluff out, is what I call it,
Yeah.
where that running up and down the track and just trying to make it into like this little game. I don't want the pup to think, or the dog to think, that we go on that track, like you said, that anxiety of got to get to the end as fast as possible, got to get to the end, because I see a lot of people, they put them on this track, they turn them around, come on, come on, come on, come on, and they're running with these puppies. For me, I'm like, I have to retrain the dog all over again, because you're not going to win when that weight gets heavy, and it's time to do a 15 20-second pull, 22 23-second pull. They're not gonna do that running down the track. So you can see it. I can almost always tell when people start to do that with their pups, and you see them coming down now with a dog. It doesn't know how to slow down on the track. It's frantic. It wants to move the weight as fast as possible, because that's what you've been teaching it right
Yeah.
from the beginning. Right from the
Yeah.
beginning, you get on the track, you touch this carpet, you turn around, you run, and then when they can't run anymore with it, they're looking at you like, "Holy crap! Well, what do I do now?"
Yeah.
So I try to avoid any of that. I
Yeah.
cut that out. I don't want my dogs to ever think. Now, if the dog wants to move it quickly on his own, because
Yeah.
that's its own pulling style, and that's it wanted to move, okay. But I don't want to teach it that. I don't want to teach it that frantic,
Yeah.
running down the track. I have to run, 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 and I feel like by doing that, again, personally, I feel like when you're doing that to these young dogs or other dogs, like, oh, come on, let's go. I look at that, I'm like, oh man, I gotta train the dog all over again, because now I gotta teach it to take its time, come down, because you're not gonna win. You're not gonna win like that. Or even if it's not about winning, you just want to compete. As soon as there's any type of substantial weight on there and it can't run with it anymore, it's just gonna stop and look at you like, I don't know what to do. You've been
Yeah.
putting me on this track now for the last, 2 months, and you've been teaching me, oh, let's go, come on and run, come on and run. Now they're like, I can't run. What do I do? And now, as a trainer, now you're going to do the process all over again, and you got to start retraining the dog, and it's a whole nother process again. So I just try to cut all that out, and I want them to take their time, be slow on the track. If I have a dog that wants to move it that way because it's doing it because that's just the type of dog that he is or she is, that's a different story. But I don't want to actually teach them to run on that track. I stay away from it as much as possible.
Yep. Hey, I love it. Hey, that's right. Right on the money, man. So, all right, got a question for you guys. We've been at this for about 40 minutes, probably about to
Hold
go
on,
into
hold
an
on.
hour. Go ahead.
This is a good opportunity now, a good time in to talk about our sponsor. We got a sponsor for this episode. It's Zesty's Nail Salon. They sponsored Emanuel. This is where he gets
That's right.
all his pedicures done.
That's
Zesty,
right. Hey, look.
Zesty
That's right.
has been teaching
Listen.
him how to do his nails.
That's right.
This is where he get his pedicures at.
See
Check out
that?
Zesty somewhere in Maryland.
That's
Zesty
right.
is where Emmanuel gets his nails and his pedicure done. So
That's
this
right.
episode has been brought to you by Zesty's, Emmanuel's
I can tell
favorite
you
spot
this.
to get his toenails done. Okay.
That's one thing I didn't. That's one thing I didn't talk about. If you're not taking care of your feet, guess what? You ain't gonna be able to walk a goddamn dog nowhere. Remember that. Remember that. Remember that. But it takes us into our next episode. We're gonna talk about reading dogs. That's we can, because I mean that can be 3 episodes as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. Being
Yeah.
able to read
Yeah.
a dog.
Yeah.
But definitely this takes us into our next episode. The title, the topic gonna be reading dogs.
Yeah.
How to read your puppy, how to read your big dog. Also, even at a competition, sometimes I see people, they'll take a dog and you'll clearly see this dog don't have an ounce of juice left. But guess what? They'll go on ADBA track and they'll put them up there 3 times. And this
Yeah.
dog don't have no juice left. It's done.
Yeah.
It is done. So, sometimes what I think that tells me is that the person doesn't trust the dog, that the dog didn't give him everything he got.
Yeah.
When you have full faith and trust in your dog, this dog just gave me 110%. But when I watch a person go one and the dog makes it 6 inches from the line, second one, he makes it now with 2 feet from the line, the third one, now he's 4 feet, now fifth one, now he just barely gets it started. I'm like, man, they don't trust that dog.
Yeah.
They couldn't trust that dog. They didn't trust that that dog didn't just give them 1,000%.
Yeah.
And that's also when we create problems and behaviors in dogs where they don't want to do this anymore, where they don't want to be on that track, where they don't want to, because what you're doing, you're setting them up for failure. They didn't win. They losing every time. They're losing, and you putting a losing attitude in the dog.
Heavier and heavier on them.
Yeah.
Even though it's the same weight, you're taking a little bit more out the gas tank and when you're using those files, it's not like you're getting a break in between there. You're taking it right back on the track. You got a few seconds and then you got to go, and it's a little bit more out the tank. And it's like you didn't trust that the animal gave you everything that he had. You didn't trust your training. I can understand one file. Let's just say you messed up. There was something wrong. You released the wrong way, and okay. But man, sometimes you see, some of these guys three fouls and just leaving the dog just hanging out there and hanging out there. And I can almost always go, nah, it's the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where it comes down to knowing your dog as well. But people sometimes, I think, like, people forget is, remember, some of these dogs go through a cut, and they have to remember to make sure that you bring that dog back, hydrated. You're giving the correct supplements.
That's a whole nother episode.
I'm gonna tell you this: the biggest issue is not even how you drying the dog up. You got to leave your pride at the door.
Correct.
It's the dog on the track. It's the dog on the track, not you. Remember that it's not you on the track; it's the dog.
There's a lot of ego training is what I like to call it. You got to remove the ego out of the training.
Yeah.
And I learned that the hard way. Once I removed my fucking ego out of the training, I was able to finally excel in the sport. You know what I mean? You have to leave the ego at the door. Don't worry about who you're losing to, or who was there, who was not there. You got to just leave the ego at the door. There's a lot of ego training, and you'll just get dogs burnt out. I mean, I'll give you a prime example of my own self. Last ADBA Nationals, when Sun was moving that 7,000, he had it rolling, and as soon as it just slowed down enough, what did I do? I push it, just push it. Why? Dog's first show. Why leave him hanging out there any more than he had to? We did what we had to do. It was just there. He moved it. He got it, I don't know, halfway down the track or something like that, and it slowed down and just pushed the cart. You know what I mean? Where some people were like, man, you could have left him out there, man. It was moving. Yeah, but I read the dog. I looked at him. I knew where he was already at. I already knew he was giving me everything he had, and I didn't want to push it any further than we had already pushed it in training, and we'll just come back and do it another day. And that's it. And just you got to know
but you kind of you're going into our next podcast, which is reading the dog. There's so many though, and I'm actually on that particular episode. I'm gonna ask you, what did you see that made you know that he was stressing, or that was it? But that's on the next episode, because like I said, that's gonna be a good episode, and I think we should take it the full distance, and because I have a lot of reads that I do on my dogs, physical reads. I have sometimes different steps my dog will make. If they'll start double pumping or that tail will bush up, that's when I know I'm at the end. If I'm halfway through and that tail bush up, dude, it's done. Let's go.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? So that's and again, we're getting into our next episode. So I think we need to call it here. Again, what was it? Zesty Tees, Nail Salon. Let's give them a shout out, because
we also want to, Save a Turtle Foundation for Jonathan, because we know
Jonathan
needs to save the turtles. Save the turtle for Jonathan. If you know, you
That's
know.
right.
This is for Jonathan. Save the Turtle Foundation for
That's it.
Jonathan. We're starting a GoFundMe. Jonathan needs help saving the turtles.
That's right. Turtle
So,
Man.
Turtle Man, live action. All right, guys. I guess we can end it here and to the
All
next
right.
one.
All right. See you on the next one.
All right,
Lab
guys.
out.
All right.